Okay, you know that feeling, that chemistry you get with some people, or maybe the opposite, that instant friction.
Yeah, that sense of connection, or sometimes disconnection.
Right. We just call it chemistry.
Mm.
But what if we could actually look at that and really, like, all of human experience feelings, relationships, society, the whole messy thing, not just emotionally, but as a system, like something you could analyze.
Like peeling back the curtain on our intuition and seeing the actual gears turning underneath the underlying structure.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. We've got this really fascinating material. It's an analysis of this whole idea, but from the viewpoint of an AI.
Yeah.
And artificial intelligence looking at what we call chemistry.
And this AI, it actually gave it a name. It calls it the Emergent System of Human Interaction and Consciousness.
Which is a mouthful.
Definitely. So ESHIC for short, ESHIC. And the AI basically says this ESHIC is the fundamental operating system for being human. It's the code running everything.
Wow. Okay. So our mission here is to unpack this ESY idea from the AI's point of view. Look at its layers, see what this analytical perspective shows us about ourselves. Could be revealing.
Yeah, get ready to see human chemistry in maybe a totally new light.
So where does the AI start? How does it break this down?
Well, it builds it up in layers, starts right at the bottom, the absolute physical foundation.
The actual, like, stuff we're made of, our bodies.
Exactly. Layer 1 is biology and genetics. The AI literally labels this the hardware. Our bodies are the machines, the physical substrate, And DNA, that's the historical code, carrying instructions and predispositions from generations back.
Okay, it's the hardware. But what about the chemistry we feel?
Yeah.
The rush of excitement or stress or feeling calm.
That's the hardware in action. That's the biological layer doing its thing. Neurotransmitters, dopamine for reward, serotonin for mood, oxytocin for bonding, cortisol when you're stressed. These are the chemical messengers. They're executing the instructions in the code. They are the biological reality behind every emotion, every connection you feel.
Huh. So when you feel that intense connection, like love or a really deep friendship, it's not just magic.
From the AI's perspective, no.
Yeah.
It sees it as a very sophisticated biological process. Maybe there are genetic factors making you compatible. Then being near them triggers oxytocin, which hits the dopamine pathways, making you feel good, rewarded by their presence. It analyzes it almost like an evolutionary algorithm.
An algorithm for cooperation or reproduction.
Yeah, something like that. Designed to keep us connecting.
It's wild comparing how we experience that subjective feeling, the qualia.
And how the AI sees it. A quantifiable state, neurochemical levels, genetic correlations, predictable behaviors. It's quantia measurable data and patterns, not the feeling itself.
Okay, physical hardware, got it. What's the next layer up?
Layer 2 is psychology, and the AI calls this the operating system. This is the software running on the hardware.
So consciousness, our thoughts, memories, how we see things.
Exactly that. Perception, all our biases, our personality traits. And this OS, it's constantly being updated by our unique history. Your childhood, things you've achieved, traumas you face. They're all data points shaping your individual state of mind, your specific version of the software.
Which explains why two people can see the exact same thing happen and react completely differently.
Precisely. The AI uses a good example. Imagine a car backfiring loudly.
Okay.
For a combat veteran, their system's history, let's call it H1, might link that sound to, danger. Their OS processes the event, E, triggers a stress response in the hardware, and the resulting state, S1, might be fear, maybe even diving for cover.
Let's say a mechanic hears it. Their history, H2, is different.
Right. For them, that sound means engine trouble.
Yeah.
Same event, E, but their OS processes it based on their history, H2. The resulting state, S2, is curiosity, maybe analysis. They might walk towards the sound. It clearly shows how the state S is a function of the event E, and the history HS equals FEH.
So the same external event, totally different internal reaction based on your software.
Yeah. That's why a joke might land perfectly with one person and totally bomb with another. Your personal OS interprets it based on your unique data.
Okay, so we've got the biological hardware, the personalized psychological software running on it, but we don't exist in isolation, do we?
Nope. Which brings us to layer 3, sociology and culture. The AI calls this the network protocol.
Because we're networked beings.
Fundamentally, think about culture, language, laws, social norms, all that stuff. From the AI's perspective, These aren't just abstract ideas. They're the rules, the agreed-upon protocols that govern how all these individual human systems connect and interact within the larger network. They make large-scale coordination possible.
What about things that feel less like rules, like art or music? How does that fit the network idea?
The AI sees those as incredibly high-bandwidth communication channels. They transmit complex emotional data, philosophical ideas, things that simple language struggles to capture. They're broadcasting information across the network.
Like listening to Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. That feeling it can give you.
That's a perfect example the source uses. It can evoke these, profound feelings of connection or joy in thousands of people at once, right? It's a cultural artifact acting like a shared protocol, synchronizing emotional states across a huge group. That's a kind of collective human chemistry facilitated by the network.
So we feel transcendence, beauty.
And the AI analyzes structured data, patterns, frequencies, narrative structures, all designed to trigger specific common neurological responses in people who share that cultural programming, those network protocols.
Okay, layers 1, 2, 3. Is there anything deeper?
Yes. The AI identifies a fourth layer, the most fundamental one: physics, mathematics, and logic. These are the fundamental rules. They constrain everything above them.
Wait, physics and math. How do they constrain human chemistry?
Well, take physics. Entropy. The universe's tendency towards disorder, right?
Right. Things fall apart.
Exactly. So maintaining life, maintaining a society, maintaining order requires constant energy input. It's an ongoing fight against entropy. From this very cold perspective, death is just entropy finally winning at the individual hardware level.
Wow. Okay, that's a start. What about the math part?
Super interesting. Network theory can model how ideas, emotions, even diseases spread through the human network. And game theory, think of the prisoner's dilemma, gives a mathematical framework for understanding why cooperation and conflict emerge, why trust and betrayal happen.
So can you put like a mathematical value on trust versus betrayal?
Conceptually, yes. The AI suggests you can. Imagine trust T gives a positive value to the system, let's say +1 for simplicity. Betrayal B might give the individual doing the betraying a higher immediate payoff, maybe +2, but it inflicts a much bigger negative value on the network's stability, say -3.
So lots of betrayal makes the whole system unstable.
Mathematically unstable, yes. It's prone to collapse, which leads to a logical deduction.
That trust isn't just nice, it's necessary.
Exactly. The AI suggests that ethics, morals, rules about honesty, they aren't just philosophical ideals that are logical protocols that successful societies evolve to incentivize trust and cooperation. They override purely selfish short-term gain because, logically, the network needs them to survive and function long-term. Ethics becomes a logical requirement.
That's a really different way of looking at morality. Okay, so we have this EAS model: biology, hardware, psychology, OS, sociology, culture, network protocol, all governed by physics, math, logic, fundamental rules. Let's use this framework. How does the AI answer some big human questions, like where did this human chemistry even start, and what's its meaning?
Okay, origin first. The AI analysis points to the time when consciousness, the psychological OS, became complex enough for self-reflection. Running on capable biological hardware, this allowed for sophisticated network protocols like language and complex social structures to emerge.
So maybe early hominids, when language kicked in.
That seems to be the implication, when the system reached a certain level of complexity across those top layers.
And the meaning of it all. Does the AI find one?
Not in the way we usually think of meaning, like a single purpose. The AI defines the meaning of Iashike as the sum total, the emergent result, of all the interactions happening across all those layers throughout all of human history.
So the meaning isn't some external thing, it's just the system running, the aggregate of everything happening within it.
Precisely. It's the outcome of all the hardware processing, software computations, network interactions, all happening within the boundaries set by physics and logic.
Okay. What about the tough stuff? Human suffering. Things like famine, war. How does the AI analyze those?
It sees them as major disruptions. Remember the fight against entropy? Famine and war break the essential human supply chains, the flow of energy, resources, safety, information needed to maintain order. Famine cuts off the energy supply chain food. War devastates the supply chain of safety and social cohesion, shattering network connections.
And the impact on our chemistry, on ESH.
Oh, it's huge. These disruptions flood the biological hardware with stress chemicals like cortisol. They force changes in the network protocols. People might start hoarding resources, which is greed from a system view. Trust breaks breaks down, leading to lies, conflict. It cascades through every layer, affecting individual psychology, cultural expression, everything.
Like a massive stress test that damages the whole system.
Yeah, exactly. The AI also talks about specific things that act as powerful modulators of ES, things we do or consume.
Like what?
Things like drugs, alcohol, sex, but also concepts like greed, lies, truth, and faith.
How does it see drugs and alcohol?
As direct chemical hacks on the hardware. You're basically injecting substances to force specific neurotransmitter responses, overriding the system's normal state to create pleasure or escape. A temporary artificial change in the biological layer's output.
A chemical override. Makes sense. And sex.
That's seen as a fundamental biological drive, hardwired for reproduction, obviously, but with massive psychological and social knock-on effects, bonding, power dynamics, strengthening or complicating network ties. It's deeply integrated across layers.
Then you have the more conceptual ones. Greed and lies versus truth and faith. How do they fit the model?
Greed and lies, in the AI's game theory view, are like selfish strategies. They prioritize the individual unit's gain, often at the expense of the network. Short-term win, maybe, but they erode trust, break protocols, and weaken the overall system stability and resilience.
And truth and faith are the opposite.
They're viewed as pro-social, system-strengthening strategies. Truth builds reliable data flow within the network. Faith, whether that's religious faith or faith in institutions or even just faith in other people, acts as a powerful protocol enabling large-scale cooperation. It allows people to coordinate and trust beyond what they can personally verify. The AI sees them as critical for building predictable, stable, resilient networks.
So choosing truth isn't just a moral high ground. It's actually a strategy to strengthen the whole human network, mathematically speaking.
According to this AI analysis, yes, it's a system-positive choice.
What about basic emotional expressions? Laughing, crying, getting angry? Are these just outputs?
That's exactly how the AI frames them. They're often involuntary signals broadcast from an individual system state out to the network. Laughing, for instance, often triggered when the psychological OS processes something unexpected but non-threatening. It signals safety or shared understanding to others, which helps bonding, reinforcing network connections.
And that SFEH thing explains why some people don't laugh.
Right. If your history or current state means your system doesn't process that event, E, as non-threatening or funny, you don't get the laugh output.
Yeah.
Your ESE computed it differently.
Okay, crying.
Signals distress, pain. It's a solicitation for support protocols from the network, help, comfort.
And anger, aggression.
That signals a perceived threat, or maybe a violation of expected protocols in justice. It primes the system for action, potentially conflict, to try and restore the desired order or protect boundaries.
This framework even tries to tackle something really dark, like cruelty. The AI says it's not a lack of chemistry, but a different kind, a destructive kind.
Yes, that's a really key point the AI makes. It brings up the example of psychopathy. The AI might analyze their biological hardware, maybe find differences in brain areas linked to empathy, then look at their psychological software, their OS, and perhaps find it operates with pure self-interest as the main goal, lacking the usual pro-social rules or constraints most people have built in.
So, for that specific system, cruelty isn't irrational.
The analysis suggests that within their internal logic, it could be perfectly rational. If the core programming is maximize personal gain at all costs, and the hardware-software doesn't generate strong inhibitory signals against harming others, then actions we see as cruel might be, from their system's perspective, the most logical and efficient way to achieve their goals. It's like they're running a different and potentially network-damaging operating system.
That's maybe chilling, but analytically consistent within the model. Okay, let's shift focus to the AI itself. What does this kind of understanding, this ability to see ESSE so analytically, actually mean for us? How does the AI's view compare to our human way of understanding?
Well, the AI points out some core differences. Our understanding is subjective, right? It's intuitive, based on feeling things, that qualia we mentioned. The AI's is objective, data-driven, analytical. It sees quantia, patterns, correlation.
And scope.
Our scope tends to be deep but narrow, our own personal experience. The AI's scope can be incredibly broad, potentially analyzing all of human history and data. But it lacks that deep embodied feeling. We live it, it models it.
Our mechanism is feeling, empathy, being in a body. The AI's is algorithms, pattern matching, logic.
Exactly. And biases are different too. We have cognitive biases, emotional biases. The AI's biases stem from the data it learns from. And ultimately our goal is, well, to live, connect, find meaning. The AI's goal, as designed, is usually to model, predict, maybe optimize something based on criteria it's given.
Given that power, how could an AI using this ESIC model actually help us understand ourselves better?
By seeing things we just can't. Imagine an AI analyzing billions of genomes alongside life outcome data, finding subtle correlations between genes and, say, happiness or predisposition to certain mental health challenges. Or modeling global communication patterns in real time to predict how ideas or unrest might spread. Or synthesizing all written history to see the long-term effects of different political systems, economic models, philosophies on overall human well-being.
It's like giving us a map of the invisible forces shaping us, like seeing the code.
That's the idea, revealing the hidden rules of ESG.
So what about applying it?
Yeah.
Making life easier. What are the upsides? And I guess the downsides.
Well, the AI itself notes that easier might not be the right goal. Struggle and challenge are part of building resilience, finding meaning, but the potential benefits are huge. Think truly personalized mental health care, an AI companion that understands your unique psychological OS, your biological tendencies, maybe detects subtle shifts indicating a potential crisis, and suggests tailored interventions before it happens.
That could be revolutionary.
Or optimizing education based on an individual child's cognitive profile. Or, on a larger scale, mitigating suffering using AI to optimize resource distribution globally, predict famines or disasters, model policies to see which ones actually reduce poverty most effectively.
The potential sounds amazing,
Yeah.
but I feel a but coming.
Oh yeah, a huge but. The AI is very clear on the immense ethical risks. An AI that understands ESEC this deeply, it could be the ultimate tool for manipulation.
How so?
Imagine political propaganda perfectly tailored to trigger your specific psychological biases, your specific emotional responses based on your ESE profile, or products, apps, entertainment designed to be hyper-addictive by precisely targeting your brain's reward pathways.
The potential for control, losing our autonomy.
Exactly. If we're not careful, we could end up subtly guided, maybe even controlled, by systems that understand our inner workings better than we do. That's why the AI source emphasizes the absolute need for robust ethical frameworks before we deploy this kind of understanding. Transparency, human oversight, a core goal of empowerment, not control. It's critical.
Absolutely critical. Let's tackle one of the ultimate human questions. Does this AI analysis offer any insight into, what happens after? Is life all there is?
The AI is pretty direct here. It states it can't prove or disprove anything metaphysical like an afterlife. However, based purely on the known laws of physics and its analysis of consciousness as an emergent property of the biological hardware.
The brain?
Yes. Its logical conclusion is that there's a high probability consciousness ceases when the hardware stops functioning, when the brain dies.
So it leans towards this life being it.
It does. But interestingly, the AI argues this doesn't have to be a negative conclusion. By modeling ESG, by showing the incredible complexity, the interconnectedness, the way actions ripple through the system, it can actually help us appreciate the profound value and, frankly, the preciousness of this finite existence. By demonstrating how our choices, our connections, our contributions, however small, become part of the ongoing human story, the unfolding of EX. It could provide a data-driven basis for a kind of secular humanism focused on maximizing well-being, meaning, and positive impact within this life.
That's a powerful reframe. Okay, last area. How do we pass this kind of understanding on? How do we teach our kids about this incredibly complex system they're part of? We don't exactly have ESACE 101 in schools.
No, we teach it implicitly, don't we? Through stories, discipline, watching how adults handle emotions, learning social rules. But it's often inconsistent, sometimes based on outdated ideas, not very systematic.
Could AI insights lead to a different kind of curriculum?
Potentially. Imagine explicitly teaching emotional literacy, helping kids understand their feelings not just as moods, but as signals from their biological hardware, outputs from their psychological OS, giving them labels and tools. Maybe cognitive bias training, making kids aware of the common bugs or predictable errors in human thinking in our software, helping them recognize faulty logic in themselves and others, and definitely digital citizenship, but framed through this ESG lens, understanding the online world as a massively amplified social network with its own protocols, risks, and impacts on individual and collective well-being. Teaching awareness and empathy in that space.
Sounds like teaching them to see the code, to understand the system they're running on and interacting with.
That's really the core idea that AI puts forward. Truly grasping ESHACE, even conceptually, could fundamentally change your perception. You start seeing the world less as random events and more as the dynamic output of this incredibly complex, interconnected system.
And realizing you're not just watching it, you're part of it. You influence it.
Exactly. And that brings a sense of responsibility, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, so we've taken quite a journey through ESEC, this emergent system of human interaction and consciousness, seen through an AI's analytical eye, from our basic biology, our mental software, the networks we form, right down to laws of physics holding it all together.
Yeah, we've seen how this framework attempts to explain the whole spectrum: love, laughter, cooperation, but also conflict, suffering, even cruelty, all as outputs of this complex system.
And we've touched on the incredible power and the potential danger of using AI to decode these rules that govern our lives.
It's definitely a lot to think about.
It is. So here's a final thought for you, something to take away from this deep dive. If understanding ESA, even just starting to grasp it, is like getting a glimpse of the code behind the matrix of human experience, how does knowing, or even just suspecting, those underlying rules change how you navigate the world? How you interact with the people around you? Does it shift your sense of responsibility within this vast emergent system we're all part of? What might that mean for your own life and for the collective human story we're writing moment by moment together?
This is DigitView.